Hello, my name is Alisa, and I'm a past life regression therapist. I'd like to speak today about a session that I did with a 9-year-old boy on a past life regression. His parents came to me because he was afraid of earthquakes. We live in California, earthquake country, and he had experienced one, and as a result, he would cry at night. He was afraid for his parents and for his family. So I brought him into the play therapy office where I introduced him to what we call sand tray work. Sand trays are a typical kind of play therapy technique where there's I have two trays of sand and many figures that he can pick off my shelf to create a scene. And he particularly liked this technique. So he started and he put a Godzilla figure in and a dragon and a snake, and he was just having them fight, and there was crashing noises, he said, and all kinds of army trucks were turned upside down. And so I asked him, I said, well, what's happening here? And he said, oh, well, they're fighting and there's all kinds of noise. And I said, well, how do you feel about all that noise? And he said, oh, I don't like it. And I said, well, what's finally going to happen in this scene? Because I often ask children, tell me the story that you have in your scene. And he said, oh, the world's coming to an end. And so I said, oh my goodness. So as I'm thinking about his experience here as he's telling me this story, I decide, okay, well, let's see if there is something of a warlike nature in his past. So I asked him to help me with my scene in my sand tray. And I said, okay, well, if there was somebody else that was having a war, can you tell me what would be happening in this battle of fighting? And he said, well, they would have cannons and they would be fighting. And so I put some soldiers and some cannons out in the sand tray. And I said, well, can you speak for one of these figures here, And he said, okay. He's very amenable, nice kid. So he started to speak for the soldier, and I said, well, how does it feel here behind this cannon firing it? And he said, oh, well, it's awful. It's noisy. And I said, yeah. And I said, what do you have to do? And he said, well, we have to keep shooting until all the gunpowder is gone. And I said, oh, wow, well, how long does that take? And he said, 3 days. And I said, oh, how do you feel, soldier, after 3 days of fighting and being behind this big, loud cannon? And he said, oh, I'm exhausted. And I said, well, how do you feel what else do you feel? And he said, oh, I just feel on the outside I'm hard, and in the inside I'm like jumping all over the place. And I'm just so, what? How do you feel? He goes, I just feel awful inside. And I said, oh my. So when the whole blast goes off on the cannon, what does that feel like? And he just literally jumped out of his chair when I said that. And he said, scared, really scared. And so what I do typically when children have a visceral experience that comes up in the session, I kind of stop and say, okay, let's do some breathing, because what happens to people when they're in a traumatic, that means a real scary experience, they go through shock. So I want you to just breathe with me for a few minutes. And so we did some deep breaths, and I said, I want you to breathe out shock. And so we did that for a bit, and then I asked him, well, what finally happens in this battle with this man and everything? And he said, oh, a sniper comes and shoots him and he's dead. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, well, gosh, what was that whole experience like for him? And he said, oh, he felt like a criminal because he was shooting all these people and he didn't want to do it. And I said, well, what kind of a choice did he have? Did he have a choice? No, he had to do it. I said, yeah, that's difficult, isn't it? And I said, when you're in the classroom and when the teacher says you have to sit still and you have to work and you have to stay there and do your work, how does that feel? And he says, I just don't understand why I can't move around. And I said, do you think that's how the soldier felt? Like, he can't move around. He can't do anything. And he goes, yeah. So as a result of a couple of other sessions that I did with him with other war scenes that he had and another past life, all his fear of earthquakes went away. So if you are interested in some more information about my work, or if you would like to subscribe to my channel, I really would appreciate it, and you can sign up on my workshop I have on my website. I have workshops and things for helping understand more about regression therapy. Thank you.